Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this meeting, and I would like to first of all remind everyone that it is being recorded. And we've got a very full agenda this evening. And we start, as usual, with our public question time. Now, we've got there's 15 minutes been allocated, so it's really 7.5 minutes each to the two people who are speaking. So I'd like to first of all invite Paul Howe.
Chair, councillors, thank you for allowing me to speak. Before I actually continue, I'd like to give my thanks to Sam Bishop for the thoughtful assistance in allowing me to be here tonight and her assistance in getting me to get here despite my age needs. My name is Paul Howe. I'm speaking on behalf of the Keep Weston High Street Safe campaign. I do not want simply to repeat the speech I've recently given to North Somerset Council. That speech placed the issue formally before the authority with the main highways powers. Tonight, I want to update Weston Town Council on what has happened since then and ask for your continued support. Following my speech to North Somerset Council, I received a constructive response from Councillor Hugh Mallian, Cabinet Member for Highways and Transport. He confirmed that officers had reviewed the High Street and acknowledged the lack of prohibition signage at entry points. He also confirmed that correct signage will be added to the minor works programme. We welcome that. It shows that this campaign is already helping to move matters forward. But signage alone will not solve the problem. The central issue now is enforcement. The High Street is meant to be a safe pedestrian area. It is used by older people, disabled people, families with children, wheelchair users, people using mobility scooters, and walkers, shoppers, workers and visitors. Yet residents continue to report cyclists and e-bikes travelling through that space at speed, often silently and sometimes weaving through pedestrians. This is not simply my personal concern. The campaign has gathered support from residents, businesses, local councillors and members of the public. Petition signatures continue to come in. Posters have gone up in local retail and charity shops. I regularly gather petition signatures at the Western Market in the Italian Gardens, often working alongside Sean French, whose commitment and collaboration have been pivotal in advancing our campaign's objectives. We're also grateful to the councillors here, and in particular I'd like to say thank you to Annabelle Chard and others who have taken the time to listen constructively and engage positively with the campaign. The issue has now been covered by Western Independent News, discussed locally on social media and raised during a radio discussion about e-bikes and pedestrian safety. This is a wide public safety concern. The figures we already have are serious. Previous Freedom of Information data show almost 100 recorded collisions in the High Street since 2020, with dozens of injuries, including 5 serious injuries. I submitted a further Freedom of Information request to Avon and Somerset Police on the 24th of May 2026 to obtain the latest collision and injury figures. I had hoped to bring those updated figures here tonight. Unfortunately, that response is now overdue, so we are still waiting for the latest data. But the absence of the latest figures does not remove the concern. If anything, it strengthens the case for transparency and urgency. We fully accept that Avon and Somerset Police face many demands across Weston, Clevedon, Portishead and the wider district. We're not asking for the impossible. We're not asking for officers to stand in the High Street every day. What we are asking for is consistency. At present, Enforcement appears to take place mainly through occasional antisocial behaviour operations. Those operations have value, of course, but they do not provide the regular, visible deterrent needed to discourage cyclists and e-bikes from using the pedestrianised high street. We would suggest a more realistic approach would be a small but regular enforcement presence, perhaps 2 or 3 hours a week at varying times and on varying days. For example, 1 hour on a Tuesday afternoon, 1 hour on a Thursday morning, and 1 hour on a Friday late afternoon, with the times changing from one week to another. That would not require a major operation, but it would send a clear message that pedestrian zone rules matter and that dangerous riding will not simply be ignored. Our concern is that action too often comes only after a tragedy. We have seen situations where warnings were there, concerns were raised, and only after someone was seriously hurt or killed did the authorities say that lessons have been learned.
Paul, you have 1 minute.
Okay. This campaign is not about anti-cycling. I don't want that to happen we don't want Weston to reach that point. This campaign is not about anti-cycling. Most cyclists are responsible and considerate. The concern is with minority who ride through crowded pedestrian areas, too often silently and at speed with lots of risk. So our request is simple. I ask Weston Town Council to continue supporting the principle that pedestrian safety in the High Street must remain a priority. I also ask the Town Council to continue raising this issue with North Somerset Council and Avon and Somerset Police. And I also ask the police representative here tonight to consider whether a modest, regular and visible enforcement presence could be introduced before a serious tragedy occurs. We are not asking for a petition, we are asking for consistency. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. Well done. If you'd like to remain with us, we're going to possibly address that when our police are talking in a little while. So, okay, so thank you very much for that. Can I now ask Nick Smart?
Good evening, Chair and Councillors. My name is Nick Smart. I'd like to speak on the motion to explore a community library in Whirl. I'm an author and a teacher, but most importantly, I am a product of Whirl Library. My history there began in 1969, when it first opened with story time and rhyme time, and I went to Tufty Club there. If anyone doesn't know who Tufty was, he was a squirrel that helped you cross the road. In 1983, I left primary school with precisely 1 O-level. Whirl Library became my gateway to self-education. It supported me through an A-level when I was 28, my degree when I was 36, a dissertation for my master's degree, which I wrote there when I was 40, and my PGCE teaching qualification when I was 42. My book was published in November 2024, and it reached the Amazon Top 100 and was featured prominently in the national press and on BBC Radio. And it was written partly within the walls of Whirl Library. So I'm living proof of the social mobility that libraries can provide. On Saturday, this gone weekend, I visited the British Library in London, a place I've been fortunate to visit lots of times in the last 10 years. It's an extraordinary place. As one of the nation's legal deposit libraries, it receives a copy of every book that's published in the UK, so its collections include Shakespeare's First Folio, manuscripts by Dickens and Austen, and it includes copies of It's a Funny Old Game by Kevin Keegan, Mr. Tickle by Roger Hargreaves, and my own book. Every single book that's been published in the last 400 years is in the British Library. It's got 200 million items, 14 million books, 400 miles of shelving, which was stretched from London to Edinburgh. And I'm not, of course, suggesting that Whirl Library should aspire to become the British Library, but if our country can treasure learning on that scale, surely it isn't too much to ask that our community in Whirl has a modest room in the community centre dedicated to books, reading and learning. The campus library is a mile and a half away, but there's no bus service from Worrell to there. And let's remember this, Worrell is the only library in North Somerset to have increased its usage since the pandemic. Winston and Hill libraries, of course, the other two that were threatened with closure in a recent consultation. Hill was saved and Winston was offered community option, but Worrell wasn't offered either in the consultation in all scenarios at that point. It was to close. But according to the consultation document, Worrell recorded nearly 22,000 visits in 2025, more than Winston and Hill combined. It provided over 1,000 hours of computer use, which is 7 times more than the other two threatened libraries. Almost 2,400 people attended events there. Only 73 attended events in Winston. By the way, I've got nothing against Worrell and Winston libraries. But by every measure, Worrell is one of the success stories of North Somerset libraries. The building might not be viable anymore, but the library certainly is. As councillors are no doubt aware, a library is far more than just a place to borrow books. It's a safe and welcoming space. It's a place where somebody who's lonely can spend some time without having to buy a coffee and justify why they're there. It's a place where children can go online to complete their homework or research a school project. It's a place where people who don't have computers or internet access can connect with the digital world. And it's somewhere where someone struggling with life's challenges, financial, practical, or personal, can find help filling in a form, accessing services, or simply speaking to another human being. It's where friendships are formed through book clubs, craft clubs, knit and natter sessions that help combat loneliness and social isolation. So libraries don't just lend books, they build stronger, healthier and better connected communities. We already have an opportunity ahead of us. The trustees of Worrell Community Centre have offered a space. Discussions have taken place with trustees, councillors, RMP and North Somerset Library Service. There's a genuine opportunity here to create a thriving community library at the heart of Worrell. Tonight's motion doesn't ask for a blank cheque, it simply asks that we explore that motion properly. So I urge you to support the motion, help ensure that another child discovers a love of reading, another lonely person finds friendship, another student finds a place to learn, and another family finds the support they need. And perhaps another aspiring author writes a book that one day finds its way onto the shelves of the British Library. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nick. Can I just thank you both for your addresses, and in particular, Paul, if you want to stay for the rest of the meeting, where some of your questions may be answered by the inspector. So that's a few items on. You're more than welcome to do so. Thank you. Now then, apologies for absence. I've got Councillors Simon Harrison-Morse, Councillor Tim Taylor, Councillor Stanfield, Councillor Martin Williams, Councillor Justina Peacock. Are there any more? Yes.
Councillor Banbury.
Yes. Thank you. Now, declarations of interest. Are there any from the floor? No? Onwards and upwards. So our next job is to approve the minutes of the Town Council meeting held on the 28th of May, which you've had, and they are attached. Are there any amendments for accuracy from the floor? Thank you. In that case, can I ask for a proposer to accept those minutes? Thank you. Councillor. Yeah. And a seconder. So we resolve that the minutes are approved and signed. So can we have a vote on that, please? Thank you. Right. Item 4, we are to receive the minutes of the Youth Council meetings held in March and May. These are for noting, but I would emphasise, I'd like to thank you all for coming tonight. It's really nice to see you. And the minutes are really interesting. And there's some things in particular that really struck me. And one of the ones was about identifying somewhere in the community which you have responsibility for keeping tidy. Loved it. I thought everyone could do that. But let's just have a look at the minutes and you'll see it's there. So, as I say, this is for noting, and we recognise that the Youth Council have been very active, producing regular newsletters, website improvements, and engagement through social media and project initiatives. So that was one of your project initiatives that I really recommend. So well done, and thank you for being here tonight. And we obviously we receive and accept your minutes. Are there any comments on the minutes from anyone else? Yes, Councillor.
So it's not a comment on the minutes, but just to echo what Owen was saying, I can't go on social media without seeing all your faces, be it posted on the various social media pages, so big well done. Your strategy of being more visible is certainly working, and there's several of us as councillors who could learn a thing or two from you, so well done on that.
Yes, Councillor Williams.
I saw in your minutes you were debating whether Hans Price Academy had gendered toilets. There are no gendered toilets at Hans Price Academy, they're all gender neutral. So just thought I'd let you know.
Thank you. Any other comments? No? Right, so we're moving on now to item 5, which is neighbourhood and response policing in Weston-super-Mare, and we're going to receive a verbal report from Inspector Lee Kersey.
Hello, right, we don't have access to a screen, I'm assuming. I've got something I can put up if you want, but I don't need to necessarily. It just saves them having to look at me, because I'm not necessarily the best thing to be focusing on.
Just need to plug in.
Yeah, if that works. This? All right.
Yeah, that's right, you're allowed. You said the same.
While we're waiting, Paul, thanks very much for your words there. You obviously don't know how I work, but come and speak to me. Not only will we talk about, but you can be involved in how we shape our policing response to that in the centre. So I don't know what your availability is this week, because I'm available Thursday at 2, but we can sort that out afterwards if you want. But if you want to, we can discuss the proposal you made and how that fits with. I can get if there's sergeants involved, sergeants available for the team, we can get him involved as well and discuss how that fits with the resources in the town, and the other time you can understand all of that. So it's up there for you to consider if you want. I'm aware as well you put freedom of information requests in. Some of that, I think, just where we access that information was really complicated, so I think there's an issue with trying to access any of that information. But again, we can discuss that properly, and you can see what we're doing on Thursday if you want. There is a bit on this, is it not working? No? Okay. We tried, and we found...
It would be local government if something didn't work.
Sorry?
I said it would be local government if IT didn't work.
Oh, yeah. So it's saying it's presented here, but it's obviously not. So, what I did for the update, normally I do data and stuff, and there were some charts being it. However, there was another question that what I was expecting. Okay. And the question was centred around HMIC inspection, and actually I thought it was a good way to frame an update from today is actually in October. Actually, the October assessment was around professional standards and stuff, but there is a peer inspection report for the constabulary, and that highlighted several things that needed improving for the constabulary, actually, most things, I think, to be fair to say. But it was centred around some things that I can control locally and some things I can't. And so the things, and I had a nice table that I put in green that I could have, but what was it going to send maybe? Yeah, we'll email it to you. But some of the things that require improvement as a constabulary that I have direct influence over locally, although not on a constabulary level, was the way in which we investigate crime, the way we detect vulnerable people, the way we manage offenders and suspects, and the way we tackle serious and organised crime. And so I was going to talk to you just briefly about some of that, and then I know there are some questions, so I won't take them. The constabulary asked, following an amateur report, that we look at, so we're at the detection rate, the positive outcome rate, the amount of crimes that were brought to a charge or an out-of-court disposal was sitting at around 5.8%, which there are other complexities around that. Which there's a lot of crime that actually you could argue isn't solvable because of the nature of what's been reported or whether it's genuine, but actually that is still a really low figure. And so we're being asked to get to 15%. So that includes charges, cautions, anything that delivers a positive outcome for the person or the victim reporting it. And I have a really nice list for you here, but the constabulary at the moment, so what I look at is our performance over the last 90 days normally when I talk to you, because that gives you a contextual figure now, and I compare that to the previous year. But it also now I'm comparing it to what's expected of us. So we're being asked to look at 15% positive outcome rate, so 15% of our offences, and like I say, there's complications around all of that, but North Somerset as a whole at 16%, the constabulary still aren't quite there yet, we're at 10.66%. And just to give you some context, so neighbourhood policing teams, Bristol City Centre at 13% over the last 90 days, 13% again over 12 months. Yeovil at 33%, which is a big step up. Trent over the last 90 days, 22% of the year. Taunton at 30%, I can keep going, you could have seen it, but I won't read it. Weston Town Centre are at 43%. And over the last 12 months, which includes that period of around sort of 5 months where we were particularly low, we're at 24%. There's no neighbourhood team in Avon Somerset Constabulary that has the same figure at the moment. So when we're talking about the proactivity and the targeting of Joe and the team in the town centre, we are starting to see some really proactive targeting of offenders, of issues in the town. The other team that we control that is really relevant to the town centre is the neighbourhood tasking team, and I talked about that at a previous meeting for those that were there, those that weren't asleep, because I probably was halfway through my thing, so I probably sent half of you asleep for 5 minutes. But the whole idea for us as a neighbourhood targeting team is we give, I don't know why I'm holding this, like it's some sort of ballad, we are supposed to be giving them stuff that they will target and they will relentlessly pursue. That's our idea of a neighbourhood tasking team. We give them real problems, prolific shoplifters, drug dealers, people that we really want to target, and the expectation is they do that really well. Their positive outcome rate, so the things that they get positive results on, is at 78%. Again, over the last 90 days, there's no one that touches them. Over the last 12 months, at 62%. And again, that fits with the top performing neighbourhood tasking teams in neighbourhood Somerset Constabulary. So in terms of our managing of offenders, investigating crime, there is a real drive. There's loads to do still. There's still things, and whether we're targeting the right people, whether we're going, that's another question. But for the work that I'm asking Joe and the Tanset team and Mark and the neighbourhood tasking team, they are really trying to focus staff on the right stuff. That would be for investigating crime. Serious and organised crime, we have a SOC disruption panel in North Somerset, a serious and organised crime disruption panel that is a multi-agency panel with loads of people attending it, everything from HMRC, ROCU, immigration, trading standards, food safety, community safety, like loads of people, along with other policing departments. And I chair that. I'm one of the SOC leads for North Somerset. We have looked at action against convenience stores, organised crime groups, airport parking issues. We have looked at all manner of serious and organised crime threats in North Somerset. And again, without going into too much detail, if anyone wants more detail, we can meet, we can talk, we can go over anything, but I'm aware of time constraints. The outcomes of that activity is measured on a system called ATMIS. Doesn't matter what that. Basically, we record stuff when we get a positive result on that system. Just again to give you a summary of where we are in North Somerset. Across Avon and Somerset Constabulary, there are 819 disruptions placed on that system. North Somerset MPT, just our teams in North Somerset with the NCT, we submitted 147 of those. So that's 18% of the constabulary's disruptions we submitted. We were the ones that created those. That's 11. Just in terms of neighbourhood policing teams, we make up 11% of those in the constabulary. Of all the teams that could be placing disruptions for maybe Somerset Constabulary, we make up around 1% of those, and we're doing 18% of the disruptions. So again, in terms of that targeted, are we working on the right stuff? We are trying. Again, I'm not saying we're doing it right. People might say we're doing the wrong stuff, but if people are saying we're not trying or we're not working hard to focus on the right things, I would dispute that. But whether our focus is on the right stuff, that's for this sort of discussion. I'll skip over a couple of things. There was a question around Marine Lake. I know that was a question. I don't know if you want to answer that, or I can answer it afterwards. But I'll skip for now, and then people can ask me. There were a number of questions they wanted me to answer. Operation Anomic is one of our things that we talk about, targeting antisocial behaviour and criminality in the town centre. A couple of good results from that recently. I won't go over all of the stuff that I did before, but a gentleman called Chris John was causing real issues in the centre. We arrested and charged with a number of shoplift thefts and breaches of criminal behaviour order that we had on him. Despite being told we probably wouldn't get a remand, we got a remand. And despite the court changes to sentencing at the moment, suggesting that we probably wouldn't get him sentenced to imprisonment, we got 30 weeks in prison, which might not sound much, I don't know, but currently the rebuttable presumption is if it's under 12 months, they are not going to get locked up. But the case that the team put together led to him being locked up for that. So it was somebody causing a lot of issues in the town centre, and the team put forward a case that was listened to by the court and resulted in the result we would have expected normally. That's in addition to another female being remanded for persistent shop thefts, and a gentleman called Christopher Gill causing daily issues over the last few weeks, really significant problems. We arrested and remanded 20 days for trial. So he's going to be potentially getting a custodial sentence as well, but we've had a remand agreed, which again is quite tricky in the current climate of criminal justice. E-scooters and e-bikes, we run Operation Align. The last operation we seized 11 e-scooters, 2 e-bikes from Weston Town Centre. And we've got 3 further dates planned over the course of the next 2 months. Before I go over the questions, the only other thing I wanted to raise, we have an independent advisory group, and there's been changes to the police support for that. That change is namely I've taken it over from a police support perspective. There is a chair of it, David Crossman from Vans, for those of you that know him, really proactive, really a great individual to be in charge of this. But we are looking for wider representation. It is something that's stagnated over the last 12 months. I know you've all got loads of responsibilities, loads of things you're involved in, so I'm not necessarily saying all hop on board. But what we are saying is, if you know influential people, I say influential, what I mean from that is opinions. People who have really strong views on shaping and improving the quality of policing services, looking to potentially the youth council as well. If there are people there that you feel you have a really, you'd have a say, you want to have a say in the things we respond to, you want to understand policing more, please refer people to us or talk to me or David Crossman or the people to contact. It's quarterly meetings, but also throughout the year I'm creating opportunities to see police training, the way we prepare for decisions, so things like Operation Anomic, so the councillors as well, but we will do observational stuff in the morning or an afternoon where you can actually see the way we control it from CCTV and physically see what we do. So if you know anyone, refer to us. I'll leave that for that because I was bored. There were some questions, weren't there? Do you want me to run through stuff or are you going to...
Can I just say that we're now going to have questions from the floor, but can we restrict questions to 1 per councillor? because of the time scale. Before we go to the actual floor, there's 3 questions that we've already had from councillors Pepperell, Thornton and Coles. Would you like me to read them as you've got them there?
Yeah, so the first one was around Castle Batch Playground, wasn't it?
That's right.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So the question was, is there any way to stop the ongoing damage to, and that's a crime prevention question. Yes, there are, but it depends on how much you want to invest in it. Thank you. You can see I was flailing, thank you. Oh, there we go, lifesaver. Oh, right, yes, that we could have, and I'm not trying to be flippant, but in crime prevention, you could have everything from security 24/7, which would completely stop it. CCTV makes people potentially, there's something called a 25, so there's 25 ways to prevent crime. There's like a 5x5 matrix of all the things you can do to try and at one end, it is like full on, lock it down, observe it, natural surveillance, lots of things you can do. CCTV sometimes prevents it, sometimes means that people do it like masked up or ways to try and it is a constant battle, but I am really aware. James Blunt, PCSO Supervisor at Whirl, is really actively, constantly talking about Castle Batch and the things that are required. There's been debates constantly around whether the bandstand should remain or should be removed, or what the impact of that. And so I don't want to get into too much of it, but yes, it depends on the amount of money or if there is money, because normally there isn't to put into it. But that's a crime prevention question, so I don't know how. I could go on about all the different options, but potentially the best thing to do would be, if you want a detailed discussion about that, I can set up something with James, Darren and the World team, and then we can go over it in more detail. The next question was around the flags.
Yeah.
We arrested somebody for some of the graffiti flags. We didn't arrest anybody for the 50 flags, well, the roughly 50 flags that were placed around that Unite March. No, we were involved with discussions with the council and around the organising the removal and the discussions around how to try and find suspects. But no, nobody was arrested, and we didn't hold anyone to account for that. Yep.
So it was me who asked that question, and in some ways I'm quite surprised because there's quite a lot of CCTV around Whitecross Road. So was that not checked to identify the people who will have gone up the ladders to put those flags up, in the space of a few hours the night before that march?
So we worked with the chair of Whitecross Road Neighbourhood Watch, and there was footage of people. But footage of people going up and down ladders doesn't identify them, and we didn't have anything identified suspects that led to us reaching a conviction. So no,
Okay, fair enough.
Sorry, and that wasn't for lack of wanting. It was just sometimes we just are unable to identify offenders. But they were recorded as criminal damage, which again, in some areas.
No, I did actually report it as a hate crime, and I never heard anything back.
Yeah, so it would be recorded as a racially aggravated criminal damage, racially aggravated public order in some circumstances. But so the offence itself is a criminal offence, and then there's a racially aggravated or a hate crime tag that's put on it. So the hate crime is the actual crime with a tag. I don't know the difference. Doesn't really make much sense.
So moving on to Councillor Cole's question about visible policing and town centre presence.
We have lost Operate Uphaven, which was a Home Office funded additional patrol into the town centre. However, we do still have the town centre team regularly patrolling when they're on duty. We have Oponomic that looks at targeted patrols and targeted interventions on the street community that normally happens every few weeks. But in terms of regular, it is when the town centre team are on duty that in the main that you'll get now. We ask for a regular presence from mounted, but as and when we get that as and when they're available. But that, so the Uphaven officers, which were 2 officers that would be there on overtime, effectively continuously patrolling for periods of time, that is now, the funding for that has now ceased. So there is a reduction in terms of that allocated patrol. The resource question, to be able to do that, is beyond my pay grade. That is potentially like a police and crime panel question or something like that, but that's not something I can influence. What I can do is say, with the resource we've got, this is what we're able to. And when we talk about, we've got Operation Anomic, which is the street community sort of town centre targeted action. We've got Operation Avatar, that's dealing with youth and social behaviour, that mainly operates with town centre team. But if we have an upturn in issues in the town centre, then as part of our Avatar, we'll bring in every neighbourhood team from across North Somerset. We're really aware of the impact that has on the rest of North Somerset, but sometimes we have to drag everybody in so that every late shift, neighbourhood teams from everywhere come into the town. The patrol teams are always briefed on the issues that are going on in the town centre, and some of them, when they can, they certainly do. They are significantly under strain as well, so their ability to proactively patrol is limited as well. The neighbourhood tasking team will focus on criminal issues in the town centre, so they will be present. They just might not see them because they might not be wearing uniform. They will wear uniform regularly, but they might not be wearing uniform when they're out and about. So there is definitely a change in the visibility, but what we're substituting that with is proactive operations but the town centre team will be there when they are. The other thing, the town centre team are bigger than they were last year. We now have 6 cops. We're going to get that. There are 8 nominally attributed to our team, but we have 6 at the moment that are operationally out and about, which is a significant upturn from where we were 12 months ago.
Thank you very much. We feel we should encourage in the future councillors to submit questions like we had at the start there to officers in writing and in advance of the meeting. So in order for the inspector to cover within his report and make the meeting as effective as possible, that's just something to consider for the future. We've also got...
There was a question about Marine Lake as well. Sorry? There was a question about Marine Lake as well.
Councillor Dawes?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm going to say I did send quite a lot of questions, I know that. I just wanted to be okay to get a response back to all of them on email, if that's okay.
Yeah, fine. I was aware there's a few others underneath it. You've just got 1 page of them, haven't you? So there are probably other pages, but I'll answer whatever you want, or I can answer by email, no problem at all.
Is there anything specifically you'd like to ask?
There is a lot on there, I've got so many questions, so yeah, I think...
So I'll just come back by email.
Yeah, the Marine Lake one would be good, I think that's very important.
So can you answer on the Marine?
Yeah, absolutely. So there was like a split question, a multi-part question, wasn't it? So is Marine Lake receiving targeted patrols? Yes, it's PCSO led, but it's also in conjunction with community response and the beach rangers. So we have looked at, and street wardens have said that if they could, they will get around there as well. But predominantly it's PCSO led with community response. In terms of the results of that, we've had a number of dispersals from the area. We've also had an e-scooter seized from there as well. I think we've identified as a repeat antisocial behaviour hotspot. The calls don't make it from our data analytical tool Click. The calls that we get do not make it a repeat antisocial behaviour hotspot. In the last week we've had 3 calls there. One of which was around somebody had the music too loud. There was one that was a fight between children there, and there was another one where a mother was thrown at somebody. So there are definitely issues there. That's not considered, but is it considered a hotspot? No, but we are treating it as a hotspot location in terms of patrols. So the data that we're doing above potentially what the data would suggest we should do, because we're aware that the data probably doesn't reflect what people are experiencing. The instance of vandalism. So. Yeah, we will look at lines of inquiry for anything like that, but if we can identify an offender through CCTV, then we will look to proceed. Otherwise, those things are filed. I think this one, there weren't any lines of inquiry to identify a suspect until it wasn't. However, I haven't had a chance to double check that because something came in as I was going through this and I couldn't do some of the inquiries I wanted. So that might be something I'll be better coming back to you by email with a bit more detail because I'll be informed. CCTV in the area, there is CCTV coverage in the area. We'd always say more CCTV coverage would be useful, but then I'm sure people at Marine Lake potentially don't want that level of CCTV coverage there, so it's a balance. We think of it from a crime point of view. I know some people think of it from a sunbathing and chilling out point of view, and we have very different views on whether CCTV is a benefit or not when you look at it from the different perspectives. But there is coverage there, and we are able to see CCTV are generally very good at knowing their hotspots, identifying where there's an issue, referring to us when they see something that's a problem.
Right, thank you very much. We're now moving into the area where we've got one question per councillor. And the first one is for Councillor Bailey.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, the question I've got then concerns you. You mentioned HMRC a couple of times.
HMIC? Or
HMRC?
Oh, what for the work we're doing with them?
Is that what you say, HMRC?
If you're talking about organised crime, it's HMRC because we're working with them. If you're talking about our inspection, it's HMIC.
HMRC. Is that concerned with people selling fake cigarettes?
Yeah.
VAT and so
Well, amongst other things, but yeah.
Because that's quite a popular thing at the moment, where many barbershops have really funded from drug sales and so on.
Yeah.
Is that something we're targeting?
Yes. But it's, without being too, this is like smoke mirror, but I'm not going to talk about policing tactics in a public meeting this video, but it's something that's very much on my of interest to me.
Thank you. I want to move on to Councillor Reynolds.
Thank you. My question was part of the Marine Lake discussion. It seems pretty obvious that if you might not have had a series of complaints recently, but obviously those are going to come when the hot weather comes and during the school holidays. So I just wondered if there was any particular plan. Maybe you can't divulge that here.
That's
There's a particular plan through the school holidays, because a lot of that antisocial behaviour, I believe, has been young people.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back, there was obviously one particular weekend where we had a large number of calls, and it was a really significant problem. That was one weekend as far as the calls go. And beyond that, so we had stepped up patrols, and they've continued since with police response with us, and CCTV have really been looking at that as a hotspot location. But we haven't had the same repeat number of calls since that weekend. Now, I'm not saying that's because of the patrols, because we haven't been there all the time. And some of the calls we've had have been, there is a group here, and we've got to balance the criminality with a group of kids, as a group I know is a risk or might be something that people might find uncomfortable. We're not necessarily going to police that unless we see something where we think there could be a problem here. So we will use our Section 35 powers to preemptively look at the likelihood of antisocial behaviour. But it's one of those where, depending on what we do, one side won't be happy. And speaking of another version of that, I remember walking along the high street, being told, what are you doing about that beggar, what are you doing about that beggar? By Costa, outside the HSBC, I end up seeing the guy begging, I disperse him away, someone comes out of Costa and has a go at me about being a fascist and picking on the beggar. And it does depend on, and so we will target the antisocial behaviour, we will deal with people who are causing problems. When we had somebody there with an e-scooter, we didn't just seize that e-scooter, we also said, look, this isn't acceptable. They started being a bit angry about it, they were all dispersed out of that area. It's because we saw a problem there. We aren't going to just pick apart groups of 5 or more children unless we see a problem. Hopefully, see that as a balance. Part of that will be we might get some of the responses wrong, so we're not just going, this is what we're doing and that's it. We work with Howard's team, we work with BID as well in terms of Darren, that's to say, are there things that we need to be aware of? We take information from beach rangers as well. If we need to change what we do, we will. If there's a sudden problem somewhere, we'll dedicate more resource to it. We have other neighbourhood teams covering other areas. When on that weekend we had them coming down as well. We can extract, I can make decisions over some other resource that we have, but I'm really aware I'm taking from somebody then, so I need to make sure it's justified with issues. We have had a couple of issues over the last week, but that wouldn't necessarily make it a hotspot of issue, a hotspot location, but we still have a presence there. And please come back to me outside of this by email if you think that that's not the right approach.
Thank you, Inspector. Are there anything else that anyone wants to raise? Councillor Creed.
Thank you. Yeah. Just a point for you. Lee, did you say that the neighbourhood team in Weston was doing better than the rest?
So I can send you the stats basically, but I look at the last 90 days compared to the last, but then when you look at that, we're like, that's high. I double checked the figures, I thought that's quite a high, but it is around things like economic and the way we've looked at targeting offending in the town centre, and we've looked at it and it does seem to be working. But yeah, our figures, I'm trying to find it again now, our figures for the last 8 days and the 12-month rolling period, in fairness, are above any neighbourhood team at the moment. We are. Where's it gone? Yeah, so 43% over the last of the rolling day period, 24% over the last 12 months. The next highest one we can find is Taunton, which is 33%, 10% less than over the last 90 days, and 1.6% less over the rolling 12 months. That doesn't say that, that just means that we've, doesn't mean that we're, I won't say we're the vet, I'm going, all I need is an indication that we're doing the right things. And this for me is an indication that the work with Joe, what we're asking Joe to do, and the work that he's doing is proactive, is making an impact, and is showing effort. Again, if you're going, somebody might go, but you're not dealing with that, and we might go, actually we do need to deal with that. And that 43% means nothing if we're not dealing with the things like shopkeepers that are really causing a problem. But what this shows is a willingness to go, you tell us something, and we'll do everything we can to jump on that, and we're one of the best at doing that in your area.
I should delight telling Julie Knight tomorrow, who you know.
Oh yeah.
She's taking over as chairman tomorrow.
Oh, I've heard, yeah.
But it did occur to me that some of the figures you've been talking, I've been looking through the panel report for tomorrow, and some of the things that members have asked about, in terms of the Avon and Somerset overall, which you can compare, I've got, on here.
Yeah.
You might pay in a future one to take this with yours and actually do a display and compare what goes on in Avon and Somerset compared to what happens in Weston.
Yeah, well, like I said, the constabulary for the last 9 days has been 10.66%, so there's a really marked difference there. But again, if you need different types of data, it's really difficult at the moment because we had some questions. I thought I'd better prepare for that rather than put forward loads of data. And also, I can give you loads of figures, they won't necessarily mean anything. If I say, are we putting effort in and are we showing the right things, then I can try and give you some numbers that support that or don't support that.
Right, I'd like to thank Lee for coming and talking tonight. And as he's made it very clear, if there's any more detail required, then we can get in touch.
Absolutely, and if anyone needs little groups to talk about specific issues or want to explore anything further, then most willing to do that.
Now, I suggest you go and have some lozenges or throat sweets or something. You look after yourself.
Cheers, thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. Right, we're moving on to item 6, which is to receive announcements and communication from the town mayor. This is for noting only, so don't worry. First of all, hands up, we're admitting that there is an error within the report because it talks about the previous mayor and the previous deputy mayor, and it shouldn't. Right, in that section where it suddenly says it should be me and it should be Caroline. Okay, so I'll just make that point clear. It also, the idea is that I very briefly, I won't go rambling on, talk about anything that's happened in the last month. It's been a whistle-stop tour, and I think this weekend sums up very clearly what the role of the mayor is. I've had 3 incredible engagements, completely from one extreme to another. I was shown around the crematorium on Saturday morning. I then went straight to Pride, where I opened the event, met thousands of people and had a lovely time. And then on Sunday, which was quite extraordinary, there were over 300 people in All Saints Church, including 3 bishops, and a new priest was ordained And it's the first time Weston-super-Mare, anything like that's happened, because it usually happens in the cathedral. So there was this huge event of over 300 people and 3 bishops. So that was this weekend. And my aim, really, as mayor, is to, and I'm sure it sounds a bit cliche, but I just go with me on this because I feel it quite passionately, is to signpost the positive. I really think that, and I'm 68 years old tomorrow, so I think I'm entitled to say about being, thank you. I think it's quite a reasonable thing to project positivity within our town. There is so much to celebrate. I keep meeting more and more people who are having a wonderful life in Weston-super-Mare, and we want to help people carry on having a wonderful life in Weston-super-Mare. From the youth council to age up, younger, and people are here, older people, everyone. And our diversity in the town is a very positive thing, and all that incredible events that are going on. So that's me, that's the mayor this year. And as I say, it's for noting only. I'm now moving on to item 7, and this is a brief item in which we are appointing a council representative to the Citizens Advice Bureau, and we are proposing to appoint Councillor Roger Bailey as the Town Council's representative to the Citizens Advice Bureau, replacing Councillor Robert Payne. So really I would like a proposer. Your proposer and a seconder. Over there, you madam. And can I have a vote? All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? It's carried. Congratulations, Councillor Bailey. Right, moving on, we now have got a very chunky part of the schedule, and it's monthly reports at year end 31st of March, and we're seeking approval. I'm going to hand over to the town clerk because it's quite bulky.
Yeah, these agenda items 8 to 10 relate to the year ended 31st of March 2026, hence why they're coming to you tonight, because you are approving your accounts for 2026. So agenda item 8, those who sit on F&GP would normally all come through there, but as I said, the reason it's here is because you are approving your accounts. 8.1 is for approval and 8.2 are for noting. If there are any questions, then the Director of Finance Resources is here and we're happy to take questions. So we're looking for a proposer and seconder for 8.1, please, Chair.
So, a proposer, please. Councillor Crawford, yeah. And seconder, Butte. And can we, all those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? Carried. So next one, any questions? Yeah, 8.2. Any questions for 8.2? No, this was for noting. There's a series of things. Right, so we just move on then? Yeah, thank you. So item number 9, to receive the final updated second internal audit report for last year. Any questions? Yes, Councillor Reynolds.
I'm really sorry I haven't got the number that this applies to, but I had 2 questions. One was that the payroll software is 239% over budget, and the cleaning figure is 460, almost 463% over budget. And I wondered if you could just explain that to me, please.
So the payroll issue that we had, we actually implemented the new People First system. We upgraded and took on their individual payroll model. We used to be with iTrade or Somerset Council. We've now bought that out of the system and we're actually fully integrated in NHR, so there's a cost that was incurred for that integration. With regard to the cleaning, we had an analysis of the costs for that particular cleaning contract. In the meantime, we had to buy in some additional cleaning contract resource because there were issues around the work that was done for the previous contractor. So there's a double cost incurred. We had to give 90 days for the notice period for the old contractor, whilst the new contract had to pay, so it's a double cost, unfortunately.
That does raise another question, doesn't it, really? How did that happen?
You could, yeah. So we have reported this up through F&GP and it's gone to personnel recognising the issues we've had with 2 consecutive cleaning contractors who have just not performed at all. We do share the building and the building is rented out by service partners in 2 areas, so it's not just our cleaning, it's cleaning on behalf of teams from CCTV and the bid. 2 lots of contractors let us down and were being performance managed and still let us down. So we had to implement a 3rd contractor, which was up at the quarry and doing a really good job, and they were in place, so it was performance related. We had to say cheerio to both, unfortunately, and took a report to HR, which agreed to bring our cleaning back in-house, because this has been a problem for probably over 12 months now, and that recruitment has been done, and the in-house team starts next week, beginning of July.
So if it's in-house, I'm assuming that can't happen again. Okay, thank you.
So we're noting the audit report. Are there any questions about that? So no further questions. So year-end accounts for the financial year, to note the period for the exercise of public rights in accordance with the Accounts and Audit Regulations 2015. So I'm going to hand to Town Clerk.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say there's been a number of challenges with our external contractor this year and changes to the way that the AGAR is submitted for our external audit. The AGAR was submitted to you this afternoon. The statement of accounts was submitted to you towards the end of last week. The AGAR statement, which looks like this, is the summary of what you are saying from a governance perspective, and is the summary of what came out to you in your statement of accounts last week. There have been failings with this contractor. Despite best intentions, they've worked with us for the last 3 years and we've never had any problems. The company themselves are the people that set the audit standards for parish and town councils, so there was no reason to believe there would be issues with them. They didn't meet the timescale. We constantly chase the timescale. My report is self-explanatory around that, but that has led to us not being able to meet our standing orders that we adopted in March this year. A new element of the standing orders actually to improve governance, to issue the accounts 14 days before the agenda. It didn't happen because the contractor let us down and there was nothing to send out to you. So I have a meeting with that contractor tomorrow. We were hoping to get that meeting in today to review that performance, because it's clearly not acceptable and has put us as officers and you as councillors in a not great position, because we have to adopt our accounts by tomorrow. That's a statutory requirement, and I will bring a full report back to F&GP on the performance of that contractor. So that's the overview, and apologies from us as why you've had your accounts late, which to a degree was out of our control, so apologies for that. You do then need to formally note that because of the breach of standing order, so that's the first thing to note, that reasons why that occurred. And then we do need to move on to the items in the report, which are 1, 2 and 3. So it's to consider the accounting statements, the AGAR, which we will return. This document hasn't changed. The way we produce it always used to be manual, it's now online. So we have to wait for it to be issued, for us to issue it back to you online once we've completed it, hence why it came out today. We've got to approve the accounting statements. This is the monetary values which came out to you earlier in the week and have been summarised in that document. We need to sign and date the AGAR tonight, so this is what we're asking for permission for. And we're also asking you to receive a note to the accompanying statement of accounts in the pack. So Helen is here as well. We're happy to take any questions arising from those accounts and apologise for the lateness of this and the position we find ourselves in.
Are there any questions about what we've just said, or is there any points like to be raised?
Yes, to echo the disappointment, so definitely under FGP we do need to look at the auditor. I suppose there's a question about how do we avoid that in the future, and that obviously question is tomorrow anyway. So just to know that we will do that. From a perspective of what we've expected over the year, finance and general purposes, what's in the annual account actually isn't too dissimilar to what we've kind of experienced and seen over the years. So there's nothing in the accounts that crop out at me and go, this isn't something I'm familiar with, they are broadly all kind of what I would expect.
Thank you, Councillor. So, right, so we're going to, I'm going to sign. Yeah, you do that.
So what we need to do, Chair, is the document in front of members this evening. The document looks like that with all the statements. Members are required to acknowledge the questions and our responses to those questions that we've put in our belief. But it's up to you to approve those answers, and in approving those answers, you are then asked to formally authorise us to sign that document on the first page of the AGAR, and then on the second page of the AGAR where the figures are, there's a second signatory required there, which is the statement of accounts. So the first resolution, please, is to accept the annual governance statement and the answers to it and approve the signature of this in order for us to submit our AGAR statement, is the first part, please. Do you need a proposer and a seconder for that, please? Or have a comment?
Proposer for that. Thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Williams. Anyone else want to talk about that? No? So we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? Carried.
So the second part there, Chair, is for the accounting statement. This is to formally be able to sign the accounting statement. So the same again, we are asking you to agree for us to sign our formal accounting statements for the year ending 31st of March 2026. We need a proposer, a seconder and a formal vote, please.
So we'll start with a proposer for that. Councillor Butte, a seconder. All those in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? Carried. Thank you for bearing with us on that. Item 11. Where am I? Formal adoption of council policies reviewed by committees. This is something that we've all been engaged with, and we have received a report, pages 77 to 80. So you've all had them. Can I ask for a proposer for the formal adoption of the council policies for this year? Seconder? All those in favour? And against? Any abstentions? Carried. Thank you. Moving on, item 12. So this is about the capital project installation of a ramp at 32 Waterloo Street. We have had the report. Can I ask for a proposer and seconder for this? Proposer for the installation of the ramp at 32 Waterloo Street. Would anyone like to hear some context, which would be helpful?
Okay, so this report is a result of our budget for the installation of the ramp for 32 Waterloo Street, which we have gained planning permission for, and was part of our refurbishment works. The reason it's coming to council is those that following the budget provision, it's gone to our quantity surveyors who have costed it, and there is a overspend required for approval for council in order for us to go to procure, because it's indicated at coming in at a higher cost than we originally had budgeted from our original QS figures, which was some time ago. This is quite typical at the moment with capital projects, where the increase in market and materials is increasing all the time, it would seem. So members are required to formally approve the beginning of the procurement process, and also to approve the approximate £10,000 overspend that is indicated by the quantity surveyor at this point in time. So that's what we're asking you to do. Thank you.
So that was, yes. Councillor Coles, would you like to?
Yeah, sorry, this might just be my own experience being a councillor, but if we're going to go out for procurement on this and we've published what we now expect to pay for it, surely all the tenders that come in are now just going to go to this amount. It seems a bit strange that we put it in the report, like in the public domain.
So they're indicative figures, and it's a specified contract, so they would be there.
But we're going to go out for tender, and we've kind of told everybody what we've got to spend and what we're expecting to pay. I would have thought it would have been cleverer for us to keep that information confidential rather than put it in the public domain so we can get the best deal.
Okay, we can take those points back and I'll check that with the team. I'll note those points. I think it's around the budget overspend, so we need to identify what the overspend would be from the budget. So I think that it's a transparency issue around needing approval for overspend when the budget figures are already in the public domain. So it's a hard one to balance out in that respect.
Councillor Croft-Willie?
Mr Mayor, has anybody actually made a proposition at this stage? If not, I'd like to make one. I propose that we go for option 2. And I will speak to that.
I'll second that.
The option before us has been put to us by the officers. It's not been put by members. There are 3 options there: one to approve this procurement exercise, one to defer the project pending further review of financial priorities. That is what I'm proposing, that it should go to F&GP for further consideration. The reason for this is that we are being asked to spend £81,500 on ramp, plus VAT. So we're being asked to fork out, getting on to probably the end of their £100,000 for a ramp. I've done some questioning to ask how many people have expressed their disquiet at their inability to get into number 32 Waterloo Street, and from our reception the answer has come back to me 0. Nobody therefore has actually complained about their inability to get into our building. 2 2 people have access issues which they've raised, and the one person was able to get out of his wheelchair and climb up that one little step into the building. And the other person is a lady who arrives to deliver something, simply presses the bell and is perfectly happy for the receptionist to come and receive the details. And yet we're being asked to spend getting on for £100,000 because we wish to do everything we can to comply with the legislation. I think everybody here will wish to do everything they can to make ease of access as possible, conveniently can be done in a building of this nature. So I don't think there's any silliness that is likely to be exposed on, let us say, Facebook by people accusing councillors of not being desirous of being compliant. Since we've opened number 32 and we've had no complaints, let us remind everybody that if people need access to the council chamber, that access is from a rear door which is 100% compliant. So we are not in any way conflicting with the regulations. And let us also remember that if anybody comes into the building and needs to get higher than the ground floor, it is physically impossible and there is no solution to it. That is one of the issues when you take on a difficult listed building, you cannot make it fully compliant. If we were starting from fresh and building a new council office, then clearly we would do everything to make it compliant. But we don't have that luxury. I'm not convinced that this money is well spent, or going to be well spent. I'm not sure that there are lacking of companies which for £100,000 could not produce a gold-plated access into the building. So I think we should defer it, send it to F&GP for further consideration, and I would earnestly hope that none of us would jump on any silly bandwagon about how we're trying to make it difficult for people who are less able to access our building. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Reynolds.
Actually, Councillor Crockford always covered, I think, all my points. The only other point was that this, I'm assuming this won't help us employ any people with mobility issues because you won't be able to get above the ground floor. So this is purely for visitors. Not that I have a problem with allowing visitors into the building, but I do have a problem with it at that price.
Councillor Thornton.
Yeah, before Councillor Crockford put the proposition, I was going to ask where this extra money is coming from, where the overspend is coming from. And I actually tend to agree with what Councillor Crockford-Hawley has said because, you know, it does seem it is over budget, it is quite a lot of money, and so it probably does need further looking into.
So just a couple of points worth clarifying. Our planning, I think, expires in June 2027, is that correct? Yes, that's something to bear in mind. So if F&GP says, yeah, let's go ahead, we've made our window tighter, and there's a risk there, of course, we then expire our planning, we then spend more money to go back in planning. So there's just some risks to navigate and to be aware of. This, just to be clear, this has been to F&GP before. It was F&GP that decided not to go ahead last year. So this isn't new news to F&GP. That's the thing to bear in mind. Effectively, this is a question about, it's quite likely to be more than it was before. That's basically the nutshell of it. I don't agree overly with you, John. You know, we've had this debate before about access and this. I think not going ahead by June 2027, if that's what eventually happens, I think that's going to send the wrong message. Yeah, sure, some people haven't complained, but what about those people who couldn't get to the door to complain? You know, these are things we need to bear in mind here. I'm not a fan of deferring it, unless you're saying deferring it and F&GP made the decision to go ahead. That's very different, right? We've got less of a risk than of planning expiring and coming back here. So just to clarify, are you saying F&GP then back, or are you saying F&GP made the decision? Because that's quite different.
Quite clear. It's item 2, defer the project pending further review of financial priorities. I'll leave it at that.
By whom? By FGP.
I'll repeat. Defer the project pending further review of financial priorities by F&GP.
Thank you, Councillor Canniford.
Thank you. Yeah, I think this is quite important in the sense that how Councillor Proctorley has spoken to it. I mean, Councillor Coles is very right about the fact we got this report on the basis that we're now telling all contractors how much money we're expecting them to charge us, and that is just something that wouldn't happen in the private sector. You just wouldn't do that, and that's not the sort of thing we do as public authorities. What we don't have in this report is what alternatives have we considered. Aluminium casing, have we considered the ramps that we can put in, take down? We are not, I mean, and also the report which says there's a risk of a non-compliance. That's not the case. That simply isn't the case. So this report isn't quite where it should be. A little bit unhappy with it because it's trying to push members to make a decision they're not necessarily quite sure about. And you know, Councillor Proctorley is determined it's 2, and the reality is, if it is 2, then F&GP will reconsider it, and it will come back to council. That's the process. So the next report, or whatever we're going to do, we need more detail about what else is being considered. This initially found objections because of the cost of building a ramp on the pavement, which, you know, in these times particularly, it seems like an awful lot of money for a ramp. I want to see more detail before I can support anything like this. This is about making access available so people can participate in our processes. They can do that, but you know, businesses that can't cope with certain changes have to find alternatives. That's what we should be doing, and then there are alternatives. Let's find those, let's report those. If we come back to this as the only option, then so be it.
Councillor Butte.
Thank you. So I basically agree totally with Councillor Proctorley and with Councillor Canniford, and I can't add very much to it, other than I think the original budget that we had was 60,000, and so for it to go up so substantially really is an awful lot of money. 60 grand was bad enough. We've still got access to the building, because the access at the rear of the building, okay, all right, you're not coming in the front entrance, but what difference does that make? There is still access to that building, and people can go right the way through to the front reception. So no, I fully support the suggestion and the proposal that this should be deferred and go back to F&GP and more investigations. Is there an alternative, or do we need it at all? Because that sounds as though there isn't a need for it, other than we've already got an access to the building through the rear. That's it.
Councillor Crew.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I totally agree with John on this. We laboured over this in the working group for a long time about the ramp outside. We didn't want a bog standard ramp. We were going to have one. Had to be something that would look good outside the building. Then we had a problem with planning on the way we would do it. But we also said that if we eventually decided to, the price was going to go up. And actually, we did say we'd probably end up paying about 75,000. So we're not far away from that. But I think practice has shown, since we've been open, is there now, with this sort of money, a real need to do it. And I think we do need to look at more closely again, do we honestly need to spend that money on something which is working well? I say most access would be to the council chamber, which has been pointed out. There's easy access to that. You can't get access to the top floors anyway. And I just think, I agree with John, yes, we have another look.
Thank you. Councillor Clayton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Totally agree with the recommendation that Councillor Proctorley has suggested. In agreement that the money is just absolutely, for one step. I can't believe we're in a conversation of this amount of money. just before I come on to what I want to say, we do have to be mindful though that we are able-bodied people talking about issues that people that are disabled have. None of us understand truly what it's like for a disabled person to access. So saying to him, sorry, you can't come through the front, but if you go around the back and come through, that's not acceptable. So I completely dismiss what Councillor Beauty said. That is absolutely, just not acceptable, because everyone should have the right of access via the front. Now, I don't sit on FNGP, whatever it's called, but I mean, I don't understand where we've got to in relation to this with the amount of money. Now, I know there's plenty of shops in the high street that have one step, and obviously with the trains, they have mobile ramps. I don't understand why we can't have a ramp that's tucked away in the building somewhere at the front, and when someone with disability access, the receptionists go out, lay the ramp out and assist them with coming in. I'm a bit confused why we're going all out and wanting to spend all this money if it is just one step.
Thank you. Going to hand over to Sam Clark to address this matter.
Thank you. And I have to take that back to FNGP. This did, when we were doing the project, come through the working group at some length, and we did explore other options. So we'll pick out all those reports back for you and the rationales why those options couldn't go ahead. I think it is definitely worth re-exploring. There was unanimous resolution to go ahead with the ramps, hence why we brought it to you. So it's not something officers are suggesting, it's a result of your previous resolutions to do so, but do totally appreciate costs are now a very big factor in how that can be achieved. In terms of putting a temporary ramp down, you can't put a temporary ramp on that structure because it's actually two steps. There's a step up from the pavement and then a step up again into the building in the front door. And the ability to have the ramp at the right angle straight down with that pavement and highways considerations is not a straightforward thing. So it is not an easy solution on the front because of the nature of the building and the nature of what is permissible with highways, which we did report, as Councillor Crew indicated, at some length through the original working group, and the reports on whether it should happen or not were received by committee. But we can absolutely bring all those back as you've indicated you'd like to do, and we will take it from there.
Can I have a vote on the proposal? Proposal therefore, are we talking about installing the ramp? Deferring the point. Sorry, yes, yeah. We're going to have a vote on deferring. So, can I have a proposer? You said that, sorry. So we're going to the vote. Okay? All those in favour of deferring? Carried. Yeah. Thank you very much for your contributions. Right, we are moving on to devolution programme updates for approval. To receive the following recommendations and requirements in relation to the devolution programme. Now, first thing is the appointment of Wellers solicitors for legal services. Yes, please.
Okay, so this has been up through the devolution working group. We are needing to make some traction and headway on this, hence why it's come to you this evening, because we don't have an FNGP until August. So there is recommendation from the devolution start and finish group to appoint Wellers, and we're looking for that to be endorsed by council, please. So we're looking for a proposer and a seconder following that consideration by the devolution start and finish group.
So the proposer for appointment of Wellers solicitors.
Shall I give some context? Yeah. Okay, yeah. So devolution, transfer of assets, obviously involves lawyers, long story short. And we've identified that our lawyers that we currently use for traditional council stuff don't have the skills or the speed we would need to do some of this. So we're looking to appoint Wellers for that. And actually, Other town parish councils in North Somerset have used them quite successfully for their transfer of assets, so there's some synergy there as well. So that's the logic of it.
Thank you, that's very useful to know. That's very useful to know. Can I have a proposer for that? You're the proposer, and the seconder, Pete Crew. Thank you, Councillor Crew. And any other comments? Councillor Crockett-Hawley?
I'm actually sick and tired of solicitors. They take so long to do anything. They're stuck in the quill and ink age. To try and get an answer from a lawyer in 24 hours, and it's, what the hell is their game? Okay, so we're getting rid of one set of lawyers, and we're taking on another set of lawyers. Can we guarantee that they will be any more efficient and any more cost effective than any other legal company of time wasters and scroungers?
I think I need to defend so just to be pretty clear, we're not getting rid of our normal council solicitors. They're still going to be around for the stuff we need. This is specific for devolution, just to be really clear.
So I would like to say that yes, I can guarantee that, but I clearly can't, because they do work to their own agendas and their own legal requirements, we're told. But we do have endorsement of these solicitors from a number of other town councils, not only around North Somerset, so they're working already with North Somerset. So North Somerset are aware of these solicitors, and I haven't heard anything contrary to them. They're obviously on the other side of the coin, so they might not agree all the time, but there's never been any bad reports, and we did take references from councils up and down the country also. So we've done as much as we can to give assurance that they are going to be good enough to do what we need them to do.
I thank the town clerk for her reassurance.
Therefore, we can ask for a proposer. We've got that on that, so we're going to have a vote. Let's have a vote. Vote to approve the recommendations. All those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? One abstention. So that's carried. Thank you. Right. Moving on to 13.2, play area transfers, approval of interim with North Somerset Council. So we're going to we've received the report of the town clerk, which is attached on pages 91 to 95. Has everyone seen those? Are there any questions?
Just like give some context and
yes,
also
context, please.
So I'll propose, obviously it's local devolution. We've discussed this kind of last year, so right now this is the transfer of 8 players from memory and I think 3 green spaces. So it's slightly later than we thought, but as a reminder, it's going to be an interim service level agreement because the intention is to transfer everything from freehold at once at the end. It's just a reminder why it's interim SLA. So that's just the context.
So we do need a proposer, and that's you, and seconder. Councillor Bailey. Are there any questions? Councillor Crew.
Chairman, I'm happy to second, but I would like to just bring in some caution on behalf of Councillor Madden and myself, because we're having trouble with Persimmon at the moment, and the one at Thompson Way, despite being told by some officers it's been adopted, we're then told by other officers, no it hasn't. I've double checked it, it's not been adopted, it's still the responsibility of Persimmon. They're letting it cause a problem, there's dogs playing in there, there's all sorts of things happening. And I just want to make it clear, yes we're taking it, of course we are. We have been trying with this play area back in fact I think Markham wrote 3 times in 3 different years asking for it to be transferred. We kept being told the same thing. It's still the property of Persimmon, not yet been adopted, so we can't do anything. So just that little caveat to be cautious that sometimes they cause a little bit of trouble there, rubbish everywhere, and there are some problems.
Thank you, Councillor. Right. No more questions, we'll go to a vote. All those in favour? Against? Any abstentions? 2. Carried. Thank you. Right, we're going to move on to item 14, which is library services. A motion has been received under Standing Order 10 to consider the motion submitted by Councillor Catherine Gibbons concerning library services. So, please note the full motion wording in the report, but we're going to ask Councillor Gibbons to say a few words.
Thank you. I don't have to read the motion out. I'm glad you noted that people have already had it and read it. I'm really pleased to move this motion today, and I'm doing it really not as myself, but on behalf of the community groups and individuals that have fought hard to save World Library, which unfortunately will close in September. We've heard from one public speaker about what the library meant to him. I didn't think I could equal the eloquence, but I expect everyone in this chamber has got their own library stories about experiences they've had and what a library meant to them. I certainly do. It's where I first I guess I was a kind of weird kid, and I discovered a book in Latin in our local library when I was about 8, and I thought, wow, what's this? And I thought I have to get involved and find out more. So it sparked something in me. So for everybody, I think libraries are places where we can discover, have our imagination sparked, and give opportunities. It's where children discover the joy of reading, and where people of all ages come together in a safe, welcoming and inclusive space, somewhere they feel they belong. And it's really clear that the people of Wells feel very strongly about the library. During the North Somerset Council consultation, Wells generated more responses than any other library. So residents, volunteers, schools, parents and community organisations were all determined to make their voices heard, because this is really important to them. I recognise that North Somerset Council has committed to providing a library outreach service. And this is welcome, because it would mean a library service would continue to have a presence in the community. But outreach isn't the same as having a physical library, giving somewhere where they know they can go to use a computer, borrow books, attend activities and meet other people, or simply spend time in a welcoming environment. It becomes part of the heart of the community in a way that an outreach service, however valuable, simply can't. The truth is, a library is a place where everyone is welcome, regardless of background or circumstances. And particularly for children, it's important. This summer, thousands of children will be taking part in the Summer Reading Challenge, encouraging them to keep reading throughout the school holidays. And having a local library is the perfect place for families to take part in activities like this. At a time when, nationally, we're having a conversation about smartphones, about the impact of social media on children, with growing calls for tighter restrictions and ban on social media for under 16s in the horizon, we clearly want children to spend less time scrolling, so surely we need to make it easier for them to spend more time reading, learning, creating and connecting with other people, and libraries can be part of that answer. So, as you've read, this motion absolutely does not commit Weston Town Council to spending any money today. What it does is recognise the value of a community library, commit us to exploring whether one is possible as part of our devolution programme, and to ask us to work with local people to develop a sustainable proposal before any decisions are made. I think it's a sensible, responsible and positive way forward. After all, libraries are an investment in our community, offering opportunities for people of all ages, and not least additional volunteering opportunities, and we all know how important that is within our community. So I really hope colleagues will support this motion tonight, so we can begin exploring how a community library in Well could become a reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Now, I'm asking you to propose this So the next thing is I need a seconder. But before that, we have a bit of... Right. Also, I did have Councillor Crew wanted to raise an issue.
Thank you. I don't disagree with what Councillor Gibbon has said there. In fact, it was quite clear the importance of libraries. But I do have to ask myself why, as a member of North Somerset Cabinet, did Councillor Gibbons decide to close the library? Because that in itself is given a problem. The library service of North Somerset is paid for by the whole of North Somerset. One library, paid for by us as a town council, is absolutely ridiculous. However, there is a solution. If North Somerset decide fairly quickly that the Children's Centre Review clears Castlebatch Children's Centre, that does two things for me. It takes off the burden of the campus because they pay for it. But secondly, it would be a good place for a community library. Because if you look at where the office staff are there, that'd be just right for a library. We would have toilets for use of the people that attend the play park, and the option of an evening event for older children, like a club with the YMCA. But it's absolutely ridiculous to think that this council would spend one penny because the council, North Somerset, decided to close the building. We know the building is bad, but let's go back. That building is the third building of Royal Library. So the gentleman spoke earlier. Wouldn't have spent that long ago in that library for where it was. 22 years ago, when the campus opened, there was an agreement at that time to review Royal Library for the following 12 months. It was meant to close then. To review it for 12 months, and over that 12 months, look at the number of people that then started using the campus, because all new and had a lot of extra books, and those people that walked or drove, and what days of the week were most popular. And the plan was then, at the end of that 12 months, to close Royal Library and pick the best time to actually have the mobile unit stationed in the same place. Well, possibly in the same place, we didn't move 3 times. But that was the plan then. So we're at the moment, that 22 years of that library remaining open when it was meant to close in the original agreement. Say more.
Can I just come back on that? Actually, at the Cabinet, I was the one Cabinet member who did speak in favour of encouraging a community option for Well, which wasn't included in the original consultation, and North Somerset has agreed to try and support a community option as far as that is possible. And I absolutely agree about the transfer of Castlebatch. We've discussed that frequently. So yeah, you make a good point. But as I say, I am here to be the voice of the community who have worked really hard to raise awareness. And it's clear that a plan to close Well Library 22 years ago has shown that that didn't happen because there has been usage and value in it. And I think there's probably still going to be usage and value.
Thank you. Can I move to Councillor Peake?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, what can I say, really? Basically, I do support this, but it is a shame that North Somerset Council have got rid of it. I mean, I have said this in the past. Many councillors here wear 2 hats. 31 councillors on Weston Town Council, and 17 are on North Somerset Council. So I presume that those 17 councillors on that decision-making process agreed to get rid of it. And once again, they're here today saying, oh dear, we need to save it now. And the public must really be very confused. I'm a resident of Wirral. Wirral has had a kick in the teeth. It's got no more banks anymore. It's got one co-op supermarket. Yes, we're quite lucky. About 4 minutes walk from my house, I go to Sainsbury's. If I fell out to Sainsbury's, it's a long walk to Morrison's, and that's where the campus is. So it's a long to wait as well. So just to conclude, I do support it, but I am disappointed that some councillors haven't seen the big game. I know it's 1.5 million, but at the end of the day, we will have to pay something to keep this library going. And it comes back to the same old story. Northampton will say, well, it's not our road, is it? It's Weston Council's road now. But as I said, I do support it. It does need a chance to save this library.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Crawford-Hawley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't think anybody is going to oppose anything which encourages readership. The Times have been leading a campaign for some considerable time now, and I suppose we're catching up in a way, but we're catching up because we're being forced to catch up by closure. The wordage, with great respect, Councillor, the wordage is very fluffy, isn't it? I mean, really, what you're asking us to do is contained within point 1 of your resolution, supporting principal creation and development of a community library in World. If I were pedantic, which some of my colleagues accuse me of being, I would alter the word support to investigate. I think it would be perfectly legitimate for this council to investigate in principle the creation and the development of a community library in World. We're going to need to take into account the fact that we have already budgeted money for a great deal of projects, and I can't see why this should take priority over other projects which have already been determined. And are we quite ready to take on what is going to be 30,000 a year in perpetuity? It will be every year, won't it? And probably rising. I do think we should word it as loosely as possible by investigating in principle creation and the development of a community library in the world, and forget all the rest of the fluffy wordage that's been added to it. There's just one final point in the preamble. We're told that libraries bring communities go through education, literacy, digital inclusion, access to information, reduction in social isolation. There's one thing missing. It's the sheer pleasure gained from non-digitised written words. Just sitting and reading something called a book, where you're turning one page over to the next page, and you're not skipping through something on this. That doesn't seem to be there, though I'm sure it wasn't intentionally missed out, it's just been forgotten. So yeah, let's proceed with the investigation. Let's forget all the fluffiness, and let's forget what I'm sure is going to be a Facebook-led campaign about haven't we done well. But there we are.
Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Butte.
Thank you. I'm still confused because the message that Nick Smart, I think it was, did at the very beginning was absolutely passionate and convincing, and I could have decided and said, yes, we need to keep that library. But as things have now gone on, that North Somerset, or no, it wasn't theirs, it was going to be knocked down or something 22 years ago. I don't know what it was exactly, but it was in disrepair 22 years ago. So if it's taken on at this time, and North Somerset can now say, that's it, draw a line under it, we're going to close it in September. Nobody seems to have mentioned exactly how much it's going to cost. Have any costings been done? And if the costings have been done, are they available, and do we have them to be able to make some sort of decision? If there was an alternative, and I don't know, I don't fully understand what Councillor Crew's suggestion is, and that's exactly why I've gone round in a circle to coming back to agreeing with Councillor Crawford-Hawley again, and saying that I really don't think that we can agree with Catherine's motion, because there's a lot of emotion in it and not fact, because we don't have the costings. It's not, this is what I'm saying, and it's going to cost this amount of money, and the town council, we want the town council to take over the responsibility of it, because North Somerset have said, as they have with a lot of other things in the devolution programme, of course, if you don't take this over, we're going to close it down. And that's what it seems to be with this library. So I'm agreeing, as I said, with Councillor Crockford-Hawley, and it needs more investigation. That's it.
Thank you. Councillor Cromley.
So just to pick a couple of things on this. So broadly support, I think the key thing to bear in mind is, in effect, what the motion is saying is, we need to look at this. The best place to look at that is the demolition site industry. That's basically what it's saying, right? So you won't come here with figures and stuff, because that's not an investigation, that's not being engaged with the community, that's not being worked out where it could go. So broadly, it is to be investigated. The demolition site industry is actually the most logical for actually the reason Councillor Crew said. So I would support it for that reason, but that's the context of why the verbiage that John's not happy with is actually quite important, because it needs to go somewhere to investigate it. And if you just have the first bullet point, where's it going, who's it looking at, and when's it coming back? So if you're offended by the words in there, my advice is just hold your nose and just vote for it, but that's where it needs to go.
Councillor Gibbons.
Yes, I was just saying to come back. Councillor Crowley said exactly what I was going to say, and I did take advice on the wording of this, and Town Clerk was very helpful to make sure that we made the points of the process of what we were asking the Town Council to investigate. So it isn't all pointless, fluffy words, I'm afraid. It's perhaps not particularly exciting as a motion. In terms of talking about the pleasure of reading, I did say that in my words quite clearly, and that's really what we want to encourage with libraries, but the point is that you can do that at home, and you can do that through an outreach service. You can have access to a book and read quietly. The point of this is not about saving the North Somerset Library that exists or existed. This is about looking at working with the community for a community library. That is quite a different thing. And this motion is designed to kickstart the process through the devolution committee to see if it's possible and work out the costings, the feasibility. Is there the support in the community? Are there the volunteers? How would this work? Because exactly we recognise that you're not just going to go and say, yes, we'll do it. There's lots of passionate people out there, and they deserve, I think, us to give consideration to what they would like to see, and sit down and work together and see, can we do this with the community? A community library is quite different, and we've seen how successful it can be in Congressbury. I know that campaigners have visited a number of community libraries, so they've done a lot of research, and if this goes forward to the relevant committee, all of that discussion and that work will take place.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Thornton.
To be honest, I think what I was going to say, which was really in response to Councillor Butte, was the reasons there's no cost in here is because they haven't been established yet. And as Catherine has just said, and also Kieran has said, this motion is about doing an investigation into the feasibility of this project. But I would say, because I know quite a few people in the library service at North Somerset, and they're always very keen to emphasise to me that Congsbury Library has a paid librarian. So it's not completely volunteer run. So that is the difference. There is a paid member of library staff at Congsbury Library. And my understanding is if that person's not there, the library doesn't actually open. I could be incorrect in that. But so this is actually going to be quite different if it's all volunteer and community led. But I just wanted to remake that point, particularly, because of what you said, Councillor Butte, but that's the reason it's fluffy and woolly and nothing definite in it, because we're going to look at it. This is a proposal to look at the possibility.
Councillor Crockford-Hawley.
There's, of course, a considerable difference between library provision in the town of Weston-super-Mare, of which Woolwell is a part, and library provision in isolated villages like Winston and Congsbury. So sure we all appreciate it. Could I be assured that when we talk of councillors being involved in this, that all of the councillors who represent the area which is generally perceived to be rural will be fully involved in this, and that it won't in any way be a party-led issue? Can I be assured of that?
Oh, down to me, yes.
And which councillor is going to then be the lead member on this?
I'm sure it goes to the committee.
So in terms of process, the motion in front of you is that it goes to the devolution start and finish group, which you've appointed members for. There's no reason, it is a start and finish group, there's no reason why ward councillors can't also be involved in that process and be kept up to date with regard to that, because of course the start and finish group is making recommendations and any councillor can sit on any committee. They just don't have a voting right, but they can certainly be involved in those discussions, and I think that would be prudent to do so.
Okay, we're now going to, I'm going to close the debate after Councillor Pepperell.
Thank you. Right, well, it's a busy place, you all know that, quite a little town by itself, and certainly does deserve a library. If we can if there's any way of keeping the one we've already got, brilliant. Otherwise, up our sleeve we've got the Castleback Centre. It's a building that nearly got pulled down some years ago. The police were saying, please pull it down, There's so much antisocial behaviour there. We turned that round, we got it rebuilt, and it's a really nice building now. The Children's Centre took it over, but they're, I believe, are leaving. So there we have a good-sized building, quite big enough to have a library, a cafe, toilet facilities, and the car park. Okay, it's too small at the moment, but I think there are plans there as well. So it's got everything, and of course with the playground there, it's got natural access to getting children into the library. So we really would like to do everything we can for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And now we've had a proposer, we've had a seconder, so we are into the position of taking a vote to see whether we approve on this motion. So can I ask for all those in favour of this motion? Any against? One. Any extension? I'm sorry. Abstentions? It's getting loud. One. Carried clearly. Thank you. We're nearly there. Item 15, Grove Park toilets. Execution of the lease. We've received a report from the town clerk which is attached, pages 99 to 101. Has everyone had a chance to see them? Can I ask for a proposer? Thank you, Councillor Connolly. And a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Reynolds.
To be clear on the motion, Chair, the motion and the information is on pages, got that in front of me now. There is 5 points of that motion which we do need to do to progress legally, so just to make sure that you are clear on what you're voting for. Page 101, there's 4 points in that motion.
Yeah, right. Right, can we have a vote please on that? All those in favour? And against? Any abstentions? No, carried. We're moving into confidential. Yes? Ladies and gentlemen, members of the public, we are moving into a confidential session. So I've got to say that we have to resolve that under Section 100A of the Local Government Act, the press and the public must be excluded from the meeting during the consideration of the following item. Because it involves the likely disclosure of exempt information. Proposer for that, please. And a seconder.